Hi friends, welcome back. It's ThandiwekaYah. So today I've got another video for you. This one is gonna be an interesting one. I'm gonna be tackling a challenging and controversial topic. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So before I started this YouTube channel, I went into a time of fasting. I did 21 days. I had been severely depressed before that, just not understanding what on earth is happening, why I'm just at zero and my life is just a hot mess. And God just prompted me to go into this time of fasting, and that's when He told me that I need to come back onto YouTube and start speaking prophetically. And one of the things I asked him was, what actually matters to you, Lord? What are the issues that matter to you the most, that you would like me to deal with, and not deal with as in I'm going to come and save the world on those issues, but the issues that he wants me to be involved in that matter to him. And the first thing he said was abortion. So I was comfortable with that. I was like, okay, Lord, no, that is a major issue, because I'm a pro-life person, and yeah, I have my strong opinions about abortion. So I'm going to share my story with you. I just want to say that if you have had an abortion, this video is not to condemn you. It's not to make you feel bad. If anything, God just wants you to know how much He loves you. That He loves you so much. It doesn't matter that you've had an abortion. He wants to change your life. He wants to heal you. He wants to heal you. Having an abortion is not a small thing. We can find a million ways to cope and think that we're okay, but healing needs to happen, and He has already forgiven you. You don't even have to worry about that. He has already forgiven you. He loves you so much, and He just wants you to come to Him and offer yourself to Him, and then He can start to heal you. So yeah, I had to say that because I've done it myself. I've had an abortion, and I want to tell you my story. I want to tell you what happened and how God's grace has just been He's amazing. I'm going to be checking my notes every now and then because I don't want to go off on a tangent. I want to stick to certain points, because the story can be told over 2 hours, and I don't have 2 hours, and I know you don't. So I had to write down some key points that I wanted to speak about with regards to my story. So in 2008, 2009, I was in a relationship with a man who had a lot of good characteristics. He was fun. He was awesome to talk to. I mean, we would talk for hours. We would sit in restaurants probably every day, and we would be there for hours, and we'd talk, and we'd have really deep conversations. But he was also very controlling. He was manipulative. He was also a lot older than me. So I was in my mid-20s and he was like close to 40. So because of that, he had a certain power over me. And I mean, being African, you know that people older than you respect, there's no questions asked, you just automatically respect. So what I want to say is that he was someone that I respected because of the age gap. That was a huge factor, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's just the way that we are raised. That's our culture here. So that hindered me from being able to also be fully expressive in my own desires in the relationship. So that's just to give you the dynamics of the relationship that I was in at the time. So fast forward many months into our relationship, probably a year into it, just over a year into it, I fell pregnant, and in my mind I was going to be married, and we were gonna live happily ever after and have a wonderful life, because we had many conversations about marriage, about children. He already had one child from his previous marriage. I say that very loosely because much later on I found out that he actually was never divorced, and he was still married when we were in a relationship together. So this was a highly toxic relationship I was in. And then so I really thought that, you know, okay, yes, we didn't plan this pregnancy, sort of. I actually almost think he was experimenting to see if he could get me pregnant, and it happened. And then so I was excited. I thought, okay, yes, it wasn't, I mean, we're not married yet or whatever, but we've spoken about it, we've spoken about our future together, so let's do this. And I got the shock of my life when he was like, nope, we are going to abort. And coming from a Christian background, I mean, back then when I was with him, I was Christian, but I wasn't really living the Christian life. To me, I really believed that I was fine being in a sexually active relationship as long as I was faithful to one person. Then that was fine with God, because these are the times that we're living in, and that God would not, that wasn't an issue. I didn't really know. In my mind, I was okay. I wasn't sinning. And it was only later in that relationship that I realized that no, this is actually sin, because we're not married. I think by the time I fell pregnant, I knew that it was a sinful relationship. So I was also dealing with a lot of moral turmoil in my mind, being in love with this man, and also knowing that actually what we're doing isn't right. And yeah, it was a very emotionally challenging time for me. It was an emotionally challenging relationship. I had to do a lot of debating in my mind just to try and justify what I was doing, because the more I was in this relationship, the more I realized just how wrong it was. So anyway, so now this man forces me into an abortion, and it was 4 days of back and forth with him. Just back and forth, him just insisting that it must happen now. We're not ready for a child, and at the right time, when we're married, we'll do this thing and we'll have a child and all of that. And he just kept bringing up all these negative things that could happen if I kept the child. He said, if you have the child, I'm leaving. You're going to be on your own. You're going to be like so-and-so who has 5 children with 5 different fathers. Is that what you want? Who's going to support you? Who's going to take care of you? I'm not taking out a cent. Mind you, this man was very well off, and could easily have taken care of everything for the child, but he was adamant. He said, I'm not going to do it if you keep the child. So there was a lot of back and forth. I've never been that much emotionally challenged in my life, where one minute I decide I'm not doing this and I'm sticking to it, and then the next minute I was broken and in tears, thinking that I have to do this because everything he's saying is true, and he's really making some good points, and I don't want to lose him either. But never at any point did I feel like I was gonna abort just so I could keep him. That was never a motivation for me. But when I would decide that I'm gonna do it, I think, well, at least then I get to keep him, you know. So there was a lot going on, and by day 4, I was just emotionally exhausted and just like, okay, let's just go to this clinic. Let's just go. We had already been to the clinic once before. He had actually said, let's go and just get some information. And when we got there, he was like, okay, let's do this now. And I was like, but I thought we were just getting information. I'm not doing this. I'm very clear that I'm not someone that supports this kind of thing. And yeah, so that was the beginning of sorrows for me in those 4 days. So by the time the 4th day came, I was just drained, and I just said, fine, let's just go. Sorry, there's a funny thing popping up on my phone here. So we went, and it was a very, very early pregnancy. So they said, no, we're going to do a medical abortion, which means that you take pills, and then those pills will do whatever they do and expel the baby. So I had to take a pill at the clinic in front of the nurse. I don't know if they're nurses. I don't know what really their titles are. And she gave me the pill, and he was in the room with me. And immediately after I put it in my mouth, I asked to go to the bathroom, and I just spat it out. I rinsed my mouth. I tried to bring up anything that might have slipped in, because in that moment of taking that pill, I was like, no, I'm not doing this. This is insane. And came back, and then we went, and so there's another batch of pills that I had to take later. So he took those and he put them in his pocket, and he said, I'll come over tomorrow and give you these other pills. I was panicking now because I knew that I hadn't taken that first pill and I didn't want to take these other pills. So it just got so, I just started to panic, and again some more emotional turmoil, just now debating, should I just go through with this, should I not again. And he came through the next day. I was living with my friend at the time. We had a very nice little townhouse in Buccleuch, so we were living together, and she was away. It was Easter weekend, so she was away. She often would go and spend time with her family, and I liked to stay alone. So I had my oldest son with me, and he, on that day that I was supposed to take the second batch of pills, I took him to my mom's house because he was going to spend the Easter time there. And I came back, and the drive back, I knew that I had no choice, that this man was going to shove those pills down my throat one way or the other. And I just broke down in that car, like just mourned for this child of mine whom I was madly in love with already, and just broken that I had to let him go. So I got back to our place. Shortly after I arrived, he arrived, and yeah, I had given up. I'd given up on the child, and I took those pills. There were 4 yellow pills, and I had to take them one by one and let them dissolve under my tongue one by one. So it was quite a process. It wasn't just drink them and you're done. So I had to sit through this, and he just sat and watched me take each and every single one of those pills. And then he left, and I didn't see him for probably almost 2 weeks. I mean, by that time I just didn't care. I was just like, I don't care. Like, he can also just exit my life right now. I don't care. I really don't care that I get to keep him. In fact, I really didn't want to keep him. So shortly after taking those pills, the bleeding started, very heavy bleeding, and I was online googling how this thing works and just tormented by what I was reading, and I was just tormented. It was torture. It was just, I had just gone through 4 days of torture, and now here I am. I'd actually taken these pills, and my baby was dying before me, and it was just like, whoa, what I was tormented. It was torture, and I realized that for the rest of my life I would have to live with this. And every year it would be, oh, he should be 5 years old now, he should be this now. I knew, and I just said, you know what, I deserve this. I deserve to suffer like this for the rest of my life. And I literally said, I'm going to take this suffering on, and it is mine, because how dare I take the life of another human being and think I can live a happy life. I have to kiss my happy life goodbye, and I resigned myself to that fact. And then at some point, it just all became too much. I'm alone in this house. All the lights are off. I just didn't want anything. And I just remember just falling down like a pile of, I don't know, whatever, onto the floor. And I just remember just saying, God, I've heard people say that you are a God of miracles. And I've heard and I've read that if I have faith as small as a mustard seed, I can move a mountain. That's all I have right now. I have this little bit of faith that you could give me my baby back. So please just give me my baby back. In that moment, there was such a peace. It was the briefest moment of peace. And I just sincerely heard God just say yes. I heard it in my spirit, in my soul, in my gut. And just as quickly as that feeling came, it left. And I got up, and I realized that this is going to be my life from now on. I'm not ever going to be happy. And I was okay with that. And shortly after the bleeding stopped, it's funny because I never connected this. The bleeding actually did stop. And I thought, well, it was a small it was a very early pregnancy, so obviously there wasn't much blood there yet or whatever, and I just carried on with my depressed self, day after day after day after day. And then about 2 weeks after I had taken those pills, this man of mine reminded me that, oh yeah, you remember that at the clinic they said you have to take another pregnancy test just to make sure everything was expelled. So the thing was, if there was any evidence of there being a baby in there, it meant that this child was deformed, and that or there were just pieces left in there that needed to come out. Sorry guys, this is explicit, but this is what they said to me at the clinic. So I was like, okay, let's do this test. So I went, I bought the test, and I remember that evening just going into the bathroom and performing the pregnancy test. And then that moment when I saw the 2 pink lines on that test, it was like so surreal. I knew, I had not a single doubt. I didn't ask myself, oh, I wonder if there's pieces. No, I knew that my baby was whole. I knew in that moment that God had answered my prayer. I knew that I was going to give birth to my child, and he was going to be whole, and he was going to be perfect. I knew it in that moment. It was such a joy fell over me, such peace, so much love. I walked into that bathroom depressed and just hopeless, and I came out of there a brand new woman. I was like, just this brand new woman. Like, my baby is here, and he's okay, and he's alive, and he's whole. I knew it. I didn't need any medical professional to tell me anything. I didn't need a scan to check. I knew it. And the next morning I woke up and I phoned my boyfriend, and I said to him, look, I did the test and I'm still pregnant and I'm keeping the baby. And then I also booked a gynae appointment because I just wanted to see my baby. I wanted to see that heartbeat. I was so excited. I was overjoyed. This was a turning point for me in my relationship with the Lord, because I grew up Christian. I grew up going to church, but I never knew him. Not that I never knew him, I just never had deep relationship with him. I always knew he was there. I would pray, but I often relied on myself, and now it was this turning point. And I remember, I forgot, when I did pray for him to give me my baby back, I also made him a promise. I said, God, if you give me this child back, I am yours. I will live my life for you. This whole entire self is yours. And that was the beginning of the most amazing relationship I've ever had in my life. And every day it just grows. This thing that God and I have has just been growing since that moment. And I don't want to make this video extremely long because there's a lot that I want to cover here. So I went to the gynae, and she basically told me, no, you have to go and have a D&E and complete the abortion because the baby's going to be deformed. And I smiled and I left her office, and I knew that I was never going to go back to her. Not because she was evil or anything like that. I just knew that she was not on the same wavelength as me, and I needed to work with people that were. And just to also save time, guys, I'm not going to talk about the rest of what happened between me and him. The relationship ended, and I was very happy about that. I was very happy to be carrying my baby, my second baby, with no man there to support me as long as I had my baby. Sorry guys, my room is like, outside my room there's like a outside sink, and someone is clearly using it right now, so that's what all that water is about. With regards to the birth of this child, I was working in a contract job, and the contract ended when I was 7 months pregnant. And obviously I was not going to start looking for a job at that late stage of pregnancy. I was living with my friend at the time, and she said, you know what, my friend, you can stay here until you're ready to leave, to move back to your parents' house free. So I didn't have to pay rent. I think I stayed for about 2 months. And excuse me. And Then I obviously didn't have medical aid, which is medical insurance. I think that's what people call it in other countries, but here we call it medical aid. So I didn't have medical aid, and this meant going to a government hospital. And guys, if you know, yeah, South Africans know what government hospitals are like here. Not a nice place to be. So I didn't want to have that birth experience, and I just said, God, I don't have a job, and I don't want to give birth in a government hospital. I found this wonderful birthing clinic. It's not even a hospital, it's literally a birthing unit. It's like a hotel where you just go and give birth, and you just have this beautiful room with a beautiful view outside. And it was called Genesis Clinic, and that's where I was aiming to give birth. Obviously it was expensive, and I remember just going there one day just to talk to them to find out what I had to pay for, and they said, well, there's a different package that is a lot cheaper if you are cash strapped. And I said, oh, this is interesting. This was more than 50% less than the original. So the original was about 15,000 rand, which I think is about $1,000 US. And guys, please, my maths is bad, so excuse me if I'm wrong on the conversion there. And this thing was gonna cost me, the other option was gonna cost me 5,000 rand, which is probably about $400 US. Yo guys, I might have to put the calculations on the screen if I got them wrong in terms of the conversion. So that was the big discount there, and the only difference was after I'd given birth to the baby, I was only allowed to stay in the room for 12 hours, whereas the original package, the full package, you get to stay on for 24 hours or more if needed. So I was quite fine with that, and I was adamant that I was going to have a natural birth because my first child I'd had a Caesar, and I said I never want to do that again. So everything that I asked God for, that's God's grace. I had a natural birth, and I gave birth in a hotel. I was only 4 hours in labor. I can say that with a smile now. It felt like an eternity. But yeah, so that's my story, guys. So God forgave me for what I did. The fact of the matter is, I went through with an abortion, but He came through with His grace and His love, and He said, okay, my child, I'm going to grant you your request. I'm going to give you your child back. And He gave me my child back. Guys, I'll insert some pictures for you at the end as well, just of this little person that God blessed me with, who is now 9 years old and just full of life. He's the loudest of all my kids. He's so compassionate. He's just such an amazing human being, and I'm just so grateful that that God saw fit to have pity on me and to just give me back this child. So the reason I'm sharing this testimony is because it's because, like I said in the beginning, abortion is a huge issue that is very close to God's heart, and He just wanted me to come on here just to let anybody know who has done this that they are forgiven, that He loves them, and that He wants to heal them. And He also just wanted me to help you guys understand that this is not it's not an option. It is not an option. There are other options. The first one is life, is choosing life for your child. How unfair is it for someone to take your life? You don't have a choice in the matter. That is severely unfair, and we're not giving this little person that we're supposed to be protecting and taking care of, we're not giving them a voice. We are their voice. There are some myths about abortion. Now, before I go into the myths that I'm going to attempt to bust, I just want to put a disclaimer here now. I am not a medical professional. I am not a medical professional. I am repeating the words of other medical professionals who I've watched here on YouTube, and I'm going to link all their videos below. Please go and watch these videos. These people give you full insight into what exactly happens in abortions and what it all means, and how It's so unnecessary and so not needed. Guys, I just want to say, often when I watch abortion videos, there's usually people commenting about, oh, well, you know, some of us don't have that support system. Guys, the support system that I had, I never placed there. I didn't make things happen for myself. God made it happen. If you're alone, you've been raped, you are in a situation where you just see it impossible to have this child, God will provide. He always does. All you have to do is ask. Sometimes you don't even have to ask him. He's already done it. He's taking care of it. You just have to ask and trust him that he will take care of you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. God will never allow you to just suffer on your own. You have to trust him. There's no reason for a child to be aborted. Absolutely no reason. There are many arguments about what if I was raped, what if I was molested. At the end of the day, that is a life. And if we were to take the time to do our research and find out what actually happens in an abortion, I'm telling you now, the abortion rate would go down immensely. So here are the myths that I'd like to bust. The first one is, it's not a person and it can't feel anything. So by the time you decide that you're going to go and have an abortion, that baby already has a heartbeat. That fetus, as medical professionals would call it, already has a heartbeat. That means that there are nerve endings. That means that when an abortion is performed, that child will experience pain. That child will go through the process of dying. Number 2, there are instances where it's necessary to save the mother's life. So that's a big argument that abortion must happen in order to save the mother's life. I listened to a former abortionist, Dr. Anthony Levatino, recently, and he said in all his career, where he's performed thousands and thousands of abortions, he also used to frequent a clinic where they would care for women that have high-risk pregnancies, so extremely high-risk pregnancies, people with cancers, people with toxemia, just in bad condition. He said, never once did we ever had to perform an abortion in order to save a woman's life. What we did was delivered the baby. We would perform a cesarean section or induced labor, and the baby would be born. Did all the babies survive? Not all the babies survived. But that was God, that was now in God's hands. They never had to abort for the child, for the woman to be saved. They had to get the baby out of the woman, but all they did was deliver the child, and mom and baby would be safe and fine. So one example he actually gave was a woman who came in with extreme high blood pressure. She was minutes, if not hours, away from a stroke. Now, if they had to perform abortion in her case, they would have had to dilate the cervix, which takes about 2 days. The woman would have been dead by the time that they wanted to perform this abortion, waiting for the cervix to dilate. So what they did was they performed an emergency cesarean section. The baby was born alive, the woman was saved, and everyone is safe. So there's never, according to Dr. Anthony Levatino, there's never any reason to perform an abortion to save a woman's life. Number 3, having the baby will ruin your life. Also, couldn't be further from the truth. I was in a position where I was on my second baby, didn't even have a job. So many things went through my mind of what could go wrong, of how badly my life could turn out if I kept this baby. And life went on, guys. Life goes on. At the end of the day, it's about facing the consequences of your actions. And when we choose ourselves over the life of another, that is just downright selfishness. I'm going to kill this child just so that I can have a comfortable life, just so that I can get by in life, so that I don't have to struggle. Absolute selfishness. And guys, this video is directed to Christians. To Christians. There are many Christians performing abortions every day and justifying them with these reasons. We are called to be selfless. We are called to give up our lives for the lives of our brothers and sisters. We are called to give up our lives and surrender it to Christ. If we would choose our own life and our own well-being over the life of the child that is growing inside of us, that is selfishness, and we're not walking the walk and living the life that God has ordained for us. Myth number 4, it's my body, my choice. You belong to God, beloved. It's not your choice. It's not your body. You belong to God, beloved. This temple is the temple of the Lord. That child growing inside of you also should be like, yeah, it's also my choice. Can I live? We don't allow the child to even have that say. Selfishness. Again, selfishness is at play when that myth comes up. It's my body, it's my choice. There are many that are affected by that choice. You the most. You the most. I've been there. I sit here and I'm able to talk because I know the torment, I know the torture, I know what it can do to you. And many may say, no, I'm fine. Coping mechanisms. That's all you're doing. You are coping. But the fact of the matter is, you have violated yourself and you've violated another human being by performing an abortion. Again, not wanting to condemn anyone, but let's stop justifying abortion with it's my body, it's my choice. We are Christians and we know better. The word says that our bodies are a temple of the living God. The word says we should live a life consecrated to Christ. The word says that we give up our life and follow Him. We take up the cross and we follow Him. We don't live for ourselves. And the last myth, too many unwanted babies living in bad conditions, some being thrown into dustbins or whatever the case might be. There are so many people out here who want to adopt a child. There are people who would give anything just to have a child of their own. If women could just follow the right channel, carry your child to full term, love that child while you're carrying that child, and put it up for adoption. Find a family. We should also, as women, say, if I find myself in a position where, oh my gosh, I can't keep this baby, I have to give this child up for adoption, I should take it upon myself to find a family, to get to know a family and say, you know what, you guys are going to take care of my child. There are so many children that, I read these stories so often and I've stopped reading the newspaper because of such things. Baby found in dustbin, baby found by the river. Ladies, go to the clinic, give birth to the child, leave the child there, rather. Like, that's actually safer for that child because they're helpless. They are helpless. We are the ones who have to take care of them. It's heartbreaking. But let's stop being selfish and let's start caring for these little ones. When you go for any medical procedure, you will make sure that you know exactly what the doctor's going to do. Any other medical procedure other than abortion, you're going to know exactly this is what the doctor's going to do, this is how it's going to affect you, this is where they're going to cut, how they're going to do it. Why don't we do the same for abortion? Why don't you go and find out what exactly actually happens in an abortion procedure? What actually happens to the baby when I take that medical pill to extinguish that life? What actually happens when they do a D&E? I've linked some videos below that give details of what actually happens. It's time for us to be informed. We need to stop turning a blind eye and justifying it with lies. That baby can feel. There's a heartbeat. When that child's life is taken, they go through the process of dying. It's painful. Do your research. Do not turn a blind eye. Know exactly what it means to have an abortion. Let's stop lying to each other. Let's stop lying to ourselves to make ourselves feel better about what we're doing. It is wrong. I know I'm probably not going to be popular after doing this video, but God said this is the issue that matters to me. And I choose to be obedient to the Lord. I choose to do His bidding and to do what He asked me to do. God loves each and every single one of you, no matter what you have done. Whether it's an abortion, whether you have been doing drugs, whether you've been living a life of sin in whatever matter, he loves you even in that moment that you are doing that thing. Come to him, let him heal you, let him change your life, that you may live peacefully. So guys, yes, that's the video for today. I know it's an intense one, but I had to come on here and share my story and speak about this matter. And I know that this will help someone. So guys, remember that he's a good father. He loves you so much. There's nothing you can do that can separate you from his love. Nothing you can do. Nothing. Nothing surprises God. He knows everything from the beginning to the end, from the end to the beginning, and everything in between. You are special to him, no matter what. Love you guys. Bye.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so